Welcome back to 52 Moments, where I answer things like,
Why are you like this?
or,
What happened to you?
or even,
Who did you piss off?
as best I can. Along the way, I hope you'll learn more about me. So let's get to it. Welcome back. This episode is called Why I'm Not a Politician. I am a political being. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm staying on top of most political issues most of the time, at least enough locally to understand what's going on, provincially, somewhat federally, and a little bit international. International politics I will watch because it's fascinating on the global scale, but I don't try to understand things too deeply. Because there's a lot you need to know to understand some of the conflicts around the globe. Anyway, I'm not a politician for a bunch of reasons. The first one is that I had two very unsettling experiences in running for office. One was in end of grade 9, it was for class president for grade 10. And one was in third year university when I ran for the UVic Student Society Board of Directors. The class president one would have been fine and not terribly humiliating had it not come down to when it was my turn to speak. It was right at the end of the assembly, and the bell went for lunch in the middle of my speech. And I leaned into the mic and said, "Please listen," which made me sound like too much of an adult, too much of a mom, too much of an authority figure. And everyone laughed and no one voted for me. It was pretty awful, didn't feel very good. So I sort of set that aside. Third year university, I ran for board of directors because I was annoyed with how they had been chatting in the meetings that had been captured in the minutes. Things like congratulating someone on becoming a vegan, that I thought, what the hell does that have to do with how our student fees are spent? And I wrote a big stinky letter to the board to say, why are you wasting time talking about this nonsense? You should be figuring out how to do X, Y, and Z. The result of that was being invited to the meetings, and there I got to see the shenanigans in person. But then I also got to know some of the directors. And unfortunately, I hitched myself to the wrong wagon. I ended up getting to know the conservative members who were actually young Socreds. Now, if you're not familiar with the Socreds, that was the Social Credit Party, and they existed in BC for many, many years. And despite the name, they are very right-wing. There's nothing social about them, and nothing that they gave credit for. So at the end of their sort of term in office, it was the Vander Zalm scandal. They literally had to push him out of office. There's a great political cartoon somewhere with him, Vander Zalm, at his desk being literally pushed out the window of the legislature. So I jumped on the sinking ship. I legitimately had a membership as a young Socred. And when I ran for board of directors, enough people knew that I had jumped on that ship that they really didn't want me to be successful, because they really wanted to keep the right-wing folks out. And in hindsight, I don't blame them at all. But in that time frame, I didn't understand it. So while I was at the debate, two people from the Women's Center stood up and asked if I considered myself a feminist. I didn't want to answer that straight out because I wanted to understand how they defined it. And so I asked them, how do you define feminist? Because at that time, that word was extremely loaded and very, like, if you attached that description to yourself, it was very clear that you were very left-wing leaning at that time. I wasn't ready to do that, and I wasn't comfortable with the term, and they refused to define it. They said it's either yes or no. So I said no, because if they couldn't define it, I wasn't going to just give a blanket yes. Needless to say, this was not the right answer. So it ended up that I got fewer votes than the write-in candidate of Bill the Cat, and that really sucked. Now, I still followed the board and I still gave input and I was back and forth a lot. I was then further humiliated within the Young Socred group because they needed a new president. I ran for president and I ran unopposed until the very last day, at which point they threw in a ringer and all the dudes voted for the ringer, which meant I didn't get even secretary, which I had been prior. That was the first time that I felt my gender had been weaponized against me. And after that, I decided I was probably a feminist. I still wouldn't attach the word to myself for probably another decade and a half before I really understood what feminism was. I was a pretty slow learner on that track. I don't know why. I figured other stuff out sooner, but feminist was a mystery to me. At any rate, I kind of gave up on politics. I don't like the way we treat our politicians. I don't like the fact that we kind of end up with the politicians we deserve because we treat them like such garbage all the time that the only people who run are sociopaths with rhinoceros thick skin. So, like, if you get anyone in there who has a heart and a brain, they are fighting constantly. If you look south of the border at people like AOC, and you see just how hard they have to constantly fight just to keep, issues in the news. It's just frustrating. And up here, we have a different system than the States, but it still kind of feels like a two-party system because we flip-flop back and forth federally. And I just get tired of that. I was asked to run for not one of the main two parties the last time around, and I declined. And I think, it's not impossible that one day I will run. And if I do, I have promised that I will outline all of my skeletons in my closet, including the fact that I was a young Socred, including the fact that there are naked pictures of me out there. And just a word to the wise, I don't think you're going to find any woman politician in the next under 30 especially who has not uploaded nude photos at some point. It's out there, and this is the world we live in, and we've got to get rid of this Puritan attitude, but it's not going to happen fast enough for me. So I will consider running once there's been a bit more decorum, once it looks like the NDP might have a fighting chance federally, once it looks like there's a place where I'm legitimately needed. I'm good at this kind of thing, but I'm best in the rank and file. I'm very good at going to conventions, speaking up on things, writing letters. I'm great at working on campaigns. I've done phone banks and all that kind of stuff. I'm very good at supporting political machines and being part of a political machine, but I do not want to lead a political machine. It's not where my strengths really are right now. I know that could change. Maybe in 15 years, things will be different, but I'm not holding my breath. So chances are you're not going to see me holding political office. But I'll never say never. And now you know another thing about me, and I hope you'll come back again next time and learn more. Thanks.